My name is Troy Norcross. I am with Blockchain Rookies. Blockchain Rookies is a company that's been founded on the premise that we believe that people in the corporate and enterprise space need to understand what is blockchain in simple and easy to understand ways. And that's what we're here to do. Not just education, but also blockchain business strategy. We say that in blockchain, it's only 10 years old. There are no gurus, there are no experts. The book on blockchain is still being written, and with any luck, we're 2 chapters ahead of you, but we're only 2 chapters ahead of you. We're all still rookies. And what I want to talk about is the barriers to adoption for blockchain from the enterprise. But before I do, how many in the room actually feel like they know what blockchain is? Okay, how many would like to have a really simple, easy to understand, and easy to tell story as to what is blockchain to your enterprise customers? Good. So, does anybody in the room ever use Excel? Okay, good, we're at a good starting point. If you think of blockchain as an Excel sheet, and every row in an Excel sheet is a transaction, and that transaction has a transaction ID, it has a time and date stamp, an origin, a destination, and whatever is being transferred, whether that's Bitcoin or whether that's cotton. That is a row in your Excel sheet. If you have a group of rows, that group of rows forms a block. Now, in Excel terms, we have another interesting concept called protected cells. And protected cells means that I can still see them, but I can no longer change them. They are protected using a password, which is indeed a form of cryptography, which is exactly what blockchain also uses. So now I've got a block, a row of transactions. I'm going to put another block. And before I make the next block, I'm going to include the password in the second block from the first block. I've now created a chain of blocks. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the Excel sheet, I'm going to give it to everybody in this room. And now I've got a distributed Excel sheet across the entire room. And in the event that you over there have a computer failure and your copy of the Excel sheet becomes corrupted, or you over there decide you're a clever clogs and you hack your copy of the Excel sheet and give yourself more Bitcoin than you're supposed to have, the rest of us in the room will know that your copies of the Excel sheet don't match. And because they don't match, they will be excluded when the group comes to consensus as to what is the correct information in the ledger. And the last thing I'll say is some Excel sheets have little programs in them called macros, little pieces of code that run on the contents of the Excel sheet. And some blockchains have smart contracts, little pieces of code that run on the contents of the blockchain. So if you think about the blockchain as being a shared Excel sheet, where every row is a transaction, groups of rows form a block that are password protected with the passwords chained into a block. That's a really easy way that I use to explain what is blockchain. Hopefully you also can share that with other people and pass a pub quiz when somebody says, what is blockchain? What are the barriers to adoption? When I talk about the barriers to adoption, I try to get down to the actual kind of the human factor level. Why is it that people are not looking at blockchain? And one of them is they say it's too slow. We keep hearing that blockchain doesn't scale. Bitcoin is 3 to 7 transactions per second, Ethereum up to 20 transactions per second. And for some reason, they want to compare that to Visa, and the Visa network is 20,000 transactions per second. So they think it's too slow. But I think, again, you have to figure out what is the right version of the blockchain. Because there's not just one blockchain. There are a variety of different kinds of blockchains that we call protocols: Bitcoin, Ethereum, EOS, NEO, IOTA. You can pick different kinds of blockchains that actually have better performance. It won't scale. Well, a lot of people are trying to put everything into the blockchain, and you shouldn't try to put everything into the blockchain. If I try to put 9 terabytes worth of data from Game of Thrones videos into an Excel sheet, and then share that Excel sheet with thousands and thousands of people, it makes no sense. What you would do is put a reference to the Game of Thrones video and a license key, and you'd store that into a blockchain. So it becomes, how do you design the data architecture that makes more sense and more of a question than it just won't scale? It uses too much electricity. I mean, how many headlines have we said, oh my gosh, Bitcoin is using more electricity than all of Iceland? And in case you didn't know it, Iceland is largely geothermal powered, so it really doesn't use that much electricity to start with, but it makes for a nice headline. The consensus algorithm that Bitcoin uses does use a lot of electricity. The Ethereum uses the same kind of proof of work consensus algorithm today, but it's moving to proof of stake, And there are other versions of this entire kind of protocol system that do not use massive amounts of electricity. You can't just say that Bitcoin uses or blockchain uses too much electricity, because you're going to have a variety of others that don't. It's not GDPR compliant. I have a push. I can drive it really fast and I can break all the laws. I have a blockchain. I can put a whole bunch of personal information into the blockchain and use it illegally. Or I can drive it normally within the rules of the road. You can indeed store information in a blockchain and be GDPR compliant. It's how you use it. I don't want that much transparency. One of the big things about the Bitcoin protocol is that you can see everybody's transactions. And it's that transparency that builds trust. Enterprises sometimes say, yeah, but transparency isn't always profitable. Again, it's how you design the data architecture that decides how much transparency is available. You can have pure transparency, you can have pure privacy, or you can have hybrids, where some of the information that's stored is encrypted, or some of it is not encrypted, so only the relevant parties can see it. Or you can have some information that is actually not actually shared on the blockchain, but proof of the information is left on the blockchain. It's only good for cryptocurrency, meaning I can use it kind of to buy guns, and I can use it to buy guns, drugs on the Silk Road. There's a whole lot of things. We say that all email runs on the internet, but the internet runs more than just email. Well, all cryptocurrency runs in the blockchain, but the blockchain runs more than just cryptocurrency. There are so many interesting applications, like Mustafa was talking about, where you can do supply chain, you can do anti-counterfeiting, you can do provenance, a variety of really interesting applications. Nobody else is using it. So at the moment, there are very few publicly known use cases, but there are a whole bunch of people that are starting to do deployments, doing proof of concepts and doing tests. And just in case it turns out that they fail, they decide, okay, we're going to keep everything under the covers. And what we think is in Q4 of this year, a number of companies, consortia, industry associations are going to come out and announce that they've actually been working on blockchain projects for the last 9 months. And that's going to really drive some significant buzz as it de-risks other enterprises getting involved. Because they said, like, somebody else is already doing it, we better follow on fast. It keeps getting hacked. So just to be clear, the Bitcoin blockchain has never been hacked. It turns out that people's wallets have been hacked. Some computers have been hacked and people's private keys have been stolen, but the cryptography behind the Bitcoin blockchain has not been hacked. So understanding what the media wants to say versus what the reality is. The Bitcoin cryptography algorithm actually works. I don't really understand it, which is kind of the reason that Blockchain Rookies exists. We want to help people understand in clean, simple, easy to understand way what is blockchain, not just the crypto hype. What is it more broadly? Oh, and the last one, probably the most important one, I don't like Mauve. Because according to Dilbert, Mauve has the most RAM when it comes to blockchain. Party like it's 1999. So John from Blockchain Rookies in the back there, he came up with this entire thing, and it's really true. Windows 98 was the first platform that actually had TCP/IP, the internet protocol, built into the actual Windows operating system. And since that point in time, we've got such advancements that have happened. The operating system OS X from Apple, Linux has come, all these evolutions have come in the last 20 years. And the idea of talking about the internet has kind of gone away. We don't talk about the internet. We talk about what we can do on top of the internet. In blockchain, it really is 2019, but it's like 1999. We're going to see so many evolutions and so many changes, fixing the scale problems, fixing the interoperability problems, having whole new kinds of blockchains that we don't even know what they're going to be yet. And in 20 years' time, we're not going to be talking about what is blockchain. We're not going to be talking about the chips in our phone. We're not going to be talking about the internet. We're going to be talking about the things that we can do on blockchain that we couldn't do before. It's only 10 years old. New things are coming fast. And in 1999, the question was, what's your internet strategy? In 2019, the question from the board of directors, from the street, from your employees, from your customers is, what's your blockchain strategy? And you don't want to have that deer in headlight moment where I can't spell blockchain. You want to know what it is and at least know what's relevant to you. And sometimes the answer is, we don't need to do blockchain today. sometimes a database suffices. So we're not trying to push people immediately into blockchain. We're trying to help you understand where it fits in your business, in your industry, and in the broader ecosystem. Where is it being used? TradeLens came from Maersk. So Maersk is the big shipping company, and they worked with IBM. They built a blockchain. They've got 94 different companies that are currently involved in this. They've reduced oceanic shipping times by 40%, and they're now rolling that out and making that entire blockchain from TradeLens available to other international shippers. Tracer, De Beers. So De Beers, the diamond company. So they're tracing diamonds from the time they come out of the ground until the time they come actually onto someone's finger. The life and history of that individual diamond, showing that it's not a blood diamond, that it hasn't had child labor from unearthing that particular diamond. And they're making that tracer, again, not just De Beers, but more people than just De Beers to be able to use the tracer database. The IBM Food Trust started with Walmart. Walmart had a problem with lettuce that had E. coli on it, and they couldn't track it through their supply chain. They put it onto the blockchain. But it wasn't just for Walmart. Now it's for Nestle, for Tyson, for Carrefour, and for Walmart's biggest competitor, Kroger. The Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, TRAI, is building a blockchain platform to manage opt-in permission for consumers on SMS and telemarketing. And BITA, the Blockchain and Transport Alliance, which started with UPS. And they've built an eBay without eBay on top of the blockchain. And what do I mean by that? It's long-haul trucking. So if you've got 4 trucks going from Tallahassee to Detroit, you can list them on the BITA marketplace. And if UPS, FedEx, Uber Freight, or someone else needs that supply, they can bid on that. And they've built an entire marketplace on the blockchain without the need for all the brokers that typically sit in the middle. So what is common between all of those projects? Multiple distrusting parties. So if you have a blockchain and it's just for you, it's just for your company, mine. No, you may as well use a database because you are by default centralized. You need multiple distrusting parties across the length of a supply chain or even your own competitors. They say to cooperate with your competition is co-opetition, and blockchain is a great platform for co-opetition. Efficiency and cost savings. As much as I'd like to say that things are going to be making new incremental business and growing your top line, blockchain's big focus right now is on reducing costs. If there's one thing that's really holding most companies back is they haven't found a way to use blockchain to grow their business. Because it always is growing the business is my number 1 priority. Saving money, saving costs, moving efficiency is my number 2 or number 3 objective. Multi-party governance. So you have multiple players. When you've got multiple players, multiple companies, and you have a blockchain, you need to have a governance that sits on top. That you agree, what are the rules? How's the data going to be shared? Who's going to have access? Is it private? Is it public? Is it permissioned? Understanding all of that and the evolution, the changes in the software as it goes forward. More than just fintech. So all of those, fintech's done some really great things. They were really afraid they were going to be completely disrupted because that was the big thing. Bitcoin says your currency without the bankers. So the bankers said, okay, if we don't figure this out, maybe we're going to be going away. We better dive in and figure it out. Those examples have some finance built into them, but they're more than just fintech. And they all started with a leader. So whether it was UPS for BITA, or whether it was Walmart for the IBM Food Trust, or whether it was Maersk for TradeLens, they all started with one company that decided we're going to lead this entire process, and then we're going to kind of bring other people into it. So what do you need to know? Start looking at how blockchain can create value beyond your own 4 walls, so outside of your own organization. There's some things you can do within your organization, but there are some things kind of beyond that. Make sure you have at least a basic understanding of what is blockchain technology, not just cryptocurrency. And decide where you want to be on this adoption curve in the industry. Gartner has the hype cycle. Are we at the top? Are we heading down to the trough of disillusionment? Or are we aiming for the plateau of productivity? I would say we're kind of currently rocketing to the bottom. We're not at the bottom yet. By the summertime, I think we're going to have, what I call the DApp graveyard. We're going to have a lot of projects that are going to die over the summer, and it'll clear out a lot of the dross, and that'll be quite good. The other movie title that we talk about is Protocol Wars. Who's going to be the winning protocol or protocols that are going to survive, upon which enterprises will build great blockchains? So this is Jason Kelly. He runs the IBM Hyperledger kind of global program for IBM. And I saw him after a conference. And he said, you know what? I've been talking to people in boardrooms, for the last year all over the world. And I said, okay, tell me, why are there not more projects? And his answer is, nobody wants to go first. Nobody wants to go first. And so Blockchain Rookie said, you know what? He's right. Nobody wants to go first but the leaders. If you want to be a leader in blockchain, if you want to understand what blockchain is, you're in the right space. You've committed to come in on a cold morning and sit with us and spend some time with us. And I think you all are potential leaders. So we're happy to be here. And thank you very much for your time.